Welcome to the show. This episode is the first part of an interview with the artist Sonia McNally. It's great fun, so enjoy. Today's episode, I shall be talking to Sonia McNally. Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I am impressed, actually, honoured actually that you should do this on your birthday. Sonia, what do you do? Traditional first question.
So I'm an artist, primarily, working from the imagination, trained in observational art with a very rigorous art school, old school art school training, weeks, months in the life room, painting the same figure, measuring, analytical, but recently made a complete departure into the imagination.
Right. Well, that sounds interesting for a start. I try not to go down that rabbit hole too quickly. So let's find out, how did you start with art? I mean, I've got my guess, but how old were you when you realised that you were arty?
Oh, I was young when I realised, but it all kind of got swept aside a bit,
Okay, so how young?
Oh, 4, 5.
Early memories, yeah?
Yeah.
What were they
like? Just being at school and not really doing the work, just doing pictures and, getting told off by the primary school teacher.
Oh, really? Really? I would have thought they would have sort of encouraged that. Or was this when you should have been doing maths? You were just...
Should have been doing maths, yeah.
All right. Well, that's understandable.
Anyway, if you cut forward about, so I've done my mainstream education. I've been travelling.
Come on! No, we're jumping too far. Come on, there's a lot.
Okay.
I've got to unravel this because for me, when I listen to people's stories, there's so much happens early on that unless they talk about it, they don't actually realise that it's important at all. So if you are actually sitting there drawing instead of, or what they would probably sort of said, doodling, instead of doing maths, that's an important point as far as I can see. That's something very important. So I'd like to pull on that thread if I can. Did that disappear, that sort of thing? Did the establishment get to you?
I think basically you have less and less time to do that, don't you? So I did do GCSE art.
Right.
Which was good.
Yeah, but you must have been drawing and stuff all the time to do GCSE art.
I think I was. I've kind of gone, I know you'll say I'm jumping ahead again, but I've kind of gone full circle with my early drawings again now.
Right.
So that is interesting actually to note.
Yes.
Because I've noticed a few things have gone full circle.
Yes. Well, that's the type of thing I'm really interested in. So now you've got to that then, and you've got to GCSE art, which is a milestone really. GCSE was a milestone for me in anything really. What was the type of thing that you were doing for that? Because in my day, I'm just trying to think what. Yeah, there was a difference between what would have been CSE, obviously, which came before that, and something like an O level. There was a very different feel to the way that those things were done, the teaching.
Well, I had a really good teacher actually. He's sadly passed away now, but he was. We were doing observational art, still life. I think my GCSE pieces were some vegetables and a violin and that kind of thing.
Who was the teacher?
Just trying to recall his surname. Mr. T.
Mr. T.
Yeah, that's funny. That's gone from my head because I did see him a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He came to an exhibition I was doing.
Oh, right. Well,
And he was also exhibiting, so we were sort of looking at each other's work.
That's amazing. That's interesting. So he was obviously an important influence.
He was an important influence, and he used to let us actually hang out in the art room as we got older. There'd be the sort of A-level students would be hanging out, and the keener GCSE students would hang out. So it was a kind of refuge in the school system, really.
Yes, that's interesting you saying that, because this is a theme that comes up quite a lot, but mostly with musicians actually. That somebody's let off a subject so they can go and just sit in the, play drums for 2 hours instead of being out on the field kicking a ball around, or something like that, or some other motivation.
We weren't really let off, but he never used to, if you had free periods and stuff like that in A-level, he would encourage you to come around and you could
it's a similar thing in that you've got a place that's marking you out as different from other people. I think it's an important point.
And he would give us all the sort of hot art tips, while we were hanging out.
Like what?
Well, it was more of a kind of osmotic education, where he would just say, oh, I can remember him once looking down he got the picture and he looked down the strings of the violin and you could see them going off, like how you look down a piece of wood if you're a carpenter and it's bent round. And he just looked down there and went, So you knew then that you had to look in the same way and then make the corrections required. So it was a very, like loose conversations and things like that.
You see, the thing is that I had a really good art teacher, and there's certain things that he said stuck with me always, and they were subtle things, simple things, but they were sort of slightly mind-blowing, but they weren't like big statements of fact or anything. It was just like, well, instead of looking at it that way, why don't you try that? Or he'd say to me something like, why did you do that? He said, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm asking you why. And you'd go like, I don't know. And it sort of got me into that sort of way of going like, you do things and you go, yeah, but why did I do that? Because we don't often do that, do we?
That's the all-important question in art, though, isn't it?
It is.
An idea.
That's what I mean.
Why do you do it, and why do you do it in that way?
Exactly.
Why not do it in a different way that may be more appropriate for the idea?
So I think those little things, when you're saying, somebody like that.
That forms a big part of my teaching, actually, now, those kind of questions.
Yeah. So he's an important character, Mr. T.
Mr. T.
It sounds like something out of the can't remember.
The A-Team.
The A-Team.
He was nothing like that.
No, there was a Mr. T in the A-Team, wasn't
I think there was, yeah.
Okay. I've just got visions of people driving through walls with tanks and stuff like that. Anyway, that's something else. So did you go on and do A-level then?
I did do A-level, but it kind of it got swept aside in favour of more academic subjects, which didn't actually work for me because I ended up failing them all.
Now, that's interesting. Why did that happen?
I think just external pressures, what are you going to do after school? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
so that was a lesson learned for everybody, wasn't it?
lack of knowledge of the arts as well, I think, and the possibilities of working in the arts.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
I probably will get to that later, but I didn't know
No.
any of the jobs really until I literally walked into one.
See, that point that you've just raised there was an important factor in what was going on with musicians of, you know, my sort of generation and people that followed me, until it became very cool to go to college to study whatever, you know. And of course, now it's gone the other way around, where people just assume because you can go and do a course in it, there must be a job. Whereas, of course, in the past, it was more that sort of thing of like, well, what are you going to do with that? You can't possibly do that type of thing. So those pressures, did they come via the school? Or were they more from the sort of family? Or
yeah, I think family, you know, just general concern about, you know, we know you're artistic, but how, you know, how are you
why
going
not become an accountant? Yeah, type of that idea.
Yeah, I don't think accountant was on the list, but
no, but you know what I mean. It's the sort of ridiculous that, you know, it's like when
just get your basic education.
Yeah. No.
Anyway, I did in the end pull through. I went back to, I don't know what happens now with the retakes, but I did retake my A-levels at Canterbury College, along with all the other kids that had kind of gone down my route. And we all got, you know, pass grades.
Yeah.
So
it was all right in the end.
It was all right in the end. I didn't do art actually, and I was very distracted when I was there because I was on the what's now called the University of Creative Arts, but used to be CIAD site in Canterbury. We were in the same block of buildings, so there was a lot of art activity going on. It was just as if it was just out of my reach.
Yeah.
You know, I'd walk in these doors, and if I'd gone in the next doors.
Yeah.
So I was very interested in.
So that might have been actually quite powerful in that way, because it was there, but it wasn't.
I didn't do anything about it. You know, I didn't get a portfolio together, and I didn't go over there.
No, but you knew.
I mean, I probably did go over there actually, but I didn't hang around over there.
No, but you knew it was there. That's what I mean. It's almost like that. There. You know it's there, but you're not allowed to go, type of thing, which is actually very quite psychologically quite powerful, I think, isn't it?
I think I was just too young to sort of realise the possibilities.
Oh, crikey, come on. I mean, I think for most successful artists, I mean, I think probably they fall into it. You know, I don't think it's like the same with musicians, I think, for the most part. It's slightly accidental, mixed with a lot of tenacity to do something that they don't really know where they're going, which is something I'm sort of quite interested in, this sort of idea. You've got a direction, but you actually haven't got a destination in mind.
Current thinking, Vic.
Yes. What do you mean, political thinking? Might be quite good. Might be quite good, actually. But
you never know. You have to have a lot of kind of, I don't know if stealth is the right word, but you've got to have a lot of sort of self-drive, I think, to carry on in artwork.
Yes, you do.
Doing artwork.
You do. And you've got to be able to, we're going to come across this anyway, I'm sure, but there's a trickster mentality to the artist that you've got to be able to see something and see it differently, and then play with the idea, and then convince people that it's actually, you know, whatever it is. And that's true with music as much as with anything else, I think. Right, so we got, so far then, you've survived school.
Yes.
And you've gone to Canterbury. Canterbury's a lovely place, actually, I must say. So then what happens?
So then I've got my A-levels. I think I try and get some jobs. Can't remember particularly which ones.
So that really obviously scored highly in your interest.
Not really.
Exactly.
I think my parents were quite keen for me to go to uni.
Okay.
But
To
I
do
think
what?
what I did was I went traveling, and I'd also, when I'd been at school, I'd also been to India with a friend of mine when we did our A-levels in the summer holiday.
Wow. So
So
that's something. Right.
I took this big trip. So I had the sort of, I had a entry point to India, and I just thought
That is amazing.
that was
Right.
fun.
Okay. That's an amazing holiday with a friend. Where did that come from? That's so left field.
We we used to go to this little tea shop in Faversham called Shelley's, have a cup of tea occasionally. She was a year ahead of me, and we just had common interests, I think, and we started discussing this, and I put it to my parents. They were like, "Oh my God!"
But why India? So is there an interest in the sort of mystical then we've missed out already?
I think at this stage, my dad used to work there a lot, and he still works with Indians, but on the internet now.
Oh, okay.
Mainly.
So you used to go to India.
He used to go to India for work. He was in food refrigeration.
Ah, okay. Okay.
So he did a lot of, and he loved Indians, and he loves India, and my mum does as well. But I think that's come
So
to her later.
that's the appeal. Right. Okay. Cool.
So I think, although that wouldn't have been a direct link at the time, we probably just went, let's go to India just for the adventure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we did, and we had this, in order to go, we had this itinerary built by an Indian travel agency, so that my parents and her parents would know what train we were on,
Yeah.
hopefully at any given time, and what hotel we would be residing in.
Yeah.
And then, we had to make contact at various points.
Yeah. That's good. That sounds exciting.
It was a wild trip. Really amazing.
Yeah. Now that's transformative, isn't it? Completely.
It really was, yeah.
Right.
Changing money on the black market in the back of a rickshaw in some dark alley, and you're not really knowing what's going to happen next.
No. That is amazing. Yeah. Wow. So that probably has an important aspect later, I reckon. I just got a feeling that that's a really important thing that you just disclosed. Anyway, we'll pass over that for the minute. So this university thing then didn't happen, or did?
So went traveling for a year. So I think I worked in London for a while. I was doing pizza deliveries and worked at a garage, got some money together. I think my parents probably lent me some money that I was then due to pay back, just so that I could actually go. And I got on a plane. Didn't talk to anyone for 2 weeks because I was just kind of scared. I ended up I was in New Delhi. I was staying in a kind of what can only be described as a chicken shed, really.
Okay.
With a load of other travellers.
Oh, not chickens, right? Okay.
I thought I'll pluck up some courage and go.
Pluck up some courage. That's a good gag. Right.
Probably worse than yours, Vic.
Yeah.
I thought I'll pluck up some courage. I'll go to a cafe, and there was a table of 3 people, and I thought I'm going to take the 4th place and go, do you mind if I sit here? They didn't speak any English, so I'd kind of psyched myself up for no. But anyway, I thought, okay, next time. I probably went out again later that day and found some English speaking characters. Yeah. And then I was sort of in the groove, and you kind of meet people. They go, oh, I think I met somebody. Oh yeah, I did meet a young woman called Miranda who was going to Goa. So we went down to Goa. I didn't really like it, the kind of party. It was very druggy. I saw a lot of people who couldn't leave. They just spent their money and couldn't get out of there, basically, living quite horrible, what I considered to be horrible lives, selling Rizzlers and
Yeah.
you know, all kinds of other horrible things. And then I thought, I'm going to go up. I'm going to go out of Goa. So I went as far north as I could. And with this young woman, Miranda, actually, I can't remember whether I met her there or we went there together. I think actually I might have met her there. And I said, I really fancy, I've seen this little thing in a travel guide about skiing in a place called Gulmarg, which is in Kashmir.
All right.
So I got this train with her. We went as far as we could on the train. It was about a 5-day train ride. And then we had to take a bus then for another, I don't know, 6 hours. That was to Srinagar. So I think the train went as far as Jammu. Then you take the bus to Srinagar. And then another bus out into this tiny little village called Gulmarg, which is in the foothills of the Himalayas.
Wow.
And then this guy who had a Land Rover, he was like the dad figure of the village. He was called Akmama. He drove us up in this Land Rover up into the mountains. But that was the only trip I ever get driven up, actually. The rest of the time I had to walk because the roads just got too bad.
Yeah.
But basically spent a lot of time skiing there, skiing with the Indian ski team who happened to be training up there, which was just like, you know, jumping off little shepherd's huts on skis, dodging trees.
Wow.
You know, it's very it was a ski resort, but because of the problems between Kashmir and India, there weren't any tourists up there.
No, because I was going to say that's quite something to go through Kashmir.
That's I mean, it was stunning as well.
Oh, yeah, I imagine it must.
You had the Seven Sisters mountain range, and then you also had the Indian Army, which were to be steered well clear of at all times.
Yes, yeah.
But you had some fantastic things like snow leopards. I was basically living in a very unusual situation because the village at the bottom of the foothills was where all the women and children were, and anybody that worked up in the mountain, so to do with the skiing or the ski industry that wasn't actually running at the time, lived up there in the mountains. So it was just really a group of men, probably about 10 to 12 men living up there, and then some various other people that I didn't get to know who were living in little huts up, isolated up in the mountains. But we would come across them on skiing trips and things like that. But yeah, so I was living in this community of men. That the social pressure kind of kept everything under control. I used to have to get dug out of my little guest house room every morning because of the snow.
That's incredible.
I remember the weight of the blankets on the bed was so great that you couldn't turn over in bed because it was so cold, you know.
Yeah. Amazing.
But it was an amazing time. And they actually tried to marry me off to one of Akmama's sons. He wasn't a bad looking chap, a bit younger, I think. But I could see the way that was all going. You know, they wanted me to set up a tourist, bringing people from England. But it would have been very odd life because I was hanging with the men, so it was all playing cards and going to the cafes, and you know, even in Ramadan, you'd have to go around the back to get in the cafe, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So even though I was a female, I was kind of living a man's life. Yeah. And even when I stayed down, I had a stint at the end of my stay. I went down to the village and stayed in the family house of the guy whose room I'd basically rented for the whole of the time. And, you know, it was an odd situation because I wasn't really considered a woman. I was considered a guest. So it would have been an interesting life. But I think if you ended up being married there, you would have had to fall into the female role.
Oh, God. You
would have ended up building houses and things.
And having lots of babies, yeah. which would have changed everything, really. There was I'm trying to think of the name of the woman who travelled in Tibet dressed as a man. In fact, I think she was dressed as a priest or a lama. What was her name? Anyway, but there was that type of thing. I mean, this was obviously going back to I think the 1930s. Might have been even earlier than that. Anyway, I've got this on a list somewhere probably, but I don't think I'll be able to find it. But that was the similar sort of thing that you as you say, you would have had to have lived as a man. Because obviously, because of basic.
I'm remembering something else as well that happened was because they had the Kashmiris are a very beautiful kind of race of people. Got very blue eyes, kind of olivey, dark skin, dark hair. But there were some fair Kashmiris.
Right.
And when I was there, I was I was wearing kind of ski trousers that I'd borrowed from the ski school, the tiny ski school, which was basically a 2-meter square hut in the mountain with a fire. And then the guy whose place I was staying in said, here's an outfit. This is my wife's outfit. And it was a beautiful kind of embroidered top. So there's some quite funny photos of me skiing down this hill, obviously at quite high speed, wearing these salopettes with this kind of embroidered Kashmiri top on. And then they all wore these also really lovely Kashmiri scarves. So they're all embroidered. You tie them around your head, tie them at the back. So you've got this long flowing thing down the back. So when I went to, when I sort of tried to break out of the little community I was living in, I say, I'd like to go to Srinagar, this was a 6-hour bus ride. I never actually ended up going on my own, which was what I'd intended to do. But when I did go, I was kind of assumed I was a Kashmiri.
Yeah.
Because I was dressed in the, outfit. And also the kids would all come around. So there weren't kids up in the mountains, but whenever I went somewhere where there were kids, they'd come around. So I learned quite a lot of Urdu and could hold a small, I'm sure, very stilted conversation. But the kids would just be bombarding you with words all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember being on this little, I can't remember what they're called, but little tiny rowing boats that you scoot around on the lake in Srinagar, Lake Srinagar, in fact, with all these kids on board. And it was just like I was some kind of great mother figure that had birthed about 15 kids. They were all on the boat with me.
Funny.
And they would just come, if I walked around a market or something, there'd be this whole kind of trail of kids following.
Strange.
But the guys up in the mountains, because they knew what was happening in the situation in Kashmir, and they knew about tourist rapes, kidnaps, etc. They knew how dangerous the Indian army were. They said to me, they will try to encourage you to come into the camp, but never, ever go, we'll go there to get the rum or whatever, but you don't go near them. Yeah. So I did actually listen to them on that one. But, going down to the town of Srinagar, which was this long bus ride, they sort of hid all the newspapers, so I couldn't see that there was problems with the tourists and the rapings and whatever. And they said, we'll come, we need some new pans and whatever. So we always went sort of en masse, or at least one of them would. But the trips were pretty infrequent, to be honest, because the road was quite often blocked. I know when I was actually going to leave, there was an avalanche that prevented leaving for about another month.
Oh, right.
So it's kind of,
That's amazing. What an amazing story. I found the name of this lady that I was talking about, Alexandra David Neal.
Oh,
So yeah. Anyway, that's
that reminds me as well, because I did experiment getting a burqa up there, and then one of the women said, "There's no point because you move like a Westerner. You know, they'll know it's not you. I mean, they'll know you're not a."
yeah.
So I
Interesting.
didn't bother with that, but they did have these very cool outfits. I bought one home. It's called a farron. It was like this long woolen cloak, it was a cape that did up completely. You put your hands in through the pockets, and you had this little fire basket that was basically keep you warm.
Wow.
So when you sat down, you know, the thing of sitting on your kind of haunches, I suppose.
Yeah.
The cloak completely touches the floor.
Right.
You've got this little fire thing underneath. It's like a plant pot with handles, a basket around it with handles, and you just keep the charcoal going. Have it at night, put it in the bed with you.
Wow.
Take it around with you. So nowhere had heating because the houses were just like mud, brick and mud houses. But you then use the fire to light the fire out of your little carrying pot to light the fires wherever you were.
That's fantastic.
And they also used them to light the pipes. They called it jajia. It's basically a hubbly bubbly, and they had the tobacco rolled in sugar, and they just put the charcoals in the top of that. And
wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Right. So you come back from there. That must have been difficult to leave.
It was hard to reacclimatize, but I did sort of go to Southeast Asia and Australia. Then I came home.
Yeah.
I was also going to go to New Zealand, but I ended up in Tasmania, and it just all. I realised I didn't really have time to do New Zealand any justice, and Tasmania was it was sort of enough at the end, I think.
Yeah. So you knew it was time to come home.
I got a big motorbike when I was in Australia with a girl that I was travelling with. We used to have a telecom van, and then my mum and dad came over. We had a rather nasty car accident, but all survived it. Anyway, the van was no more. I told my mum and dad we got a Honda Civic car, but we actually got a Honda 900. And we rode around. We rode around on that. She learned to ride on it, so the indicators were gone after day one.
Right.
And then we took it over to Tasmania. Eventually, it broke down. We had some pretty interesting adventures in Tasmania. And then for me, I think she went off to drive a bus across Africa or something. And I thought, actually, I don't want to be one of those Rizla sellers in India. So I'm going to come back and do something else, which I didn't really know what.
Wow. So anyway, this is a real, you've come back a different person, I would say. I'm guessing here. So what happens? You just get a job?
No, I think I did a night shift at a garage for a while, which was just pretty desperate. And then
selling Rizla papers. No, I'm joking.
Probably selling Rizlas to the late nighters. A friend of mine had a job as an agronomist, and I thought that was quite interesting. So he was walking fields, advising farmers on what chemicals they would need to grow. So I'd be more on the conservation side, but I became interested in Y College, which was part of University of London.
Yeah.
And that was quite near to where I was living. So I was back home with my mum and dad. It was quite near to where I was living, and I thought, actually, that could be really interesting. It turned out that, I did that degree. I didn't do terribly well in it, although I did work at it. But I tried to get a job at the end of it, And I found I'm just entering this world that is never going to accept me. You know, I was a young blonde female. I was talking to farmers,
Yeah.
which obviously I would be doing in a pub anyway, just as a matter of course. You know, get along fine with them socially, but when it comes to a work thing, I just thought they're never going to take me seriously.
No.
I was just too theatrical in nature, and you know, it just wasn't. You could see the two worlds were never going to gel.
No. Okay. That's interesting. So really, you're being directed somewhere now, I think, aren't you?
Yes, I did have. I had a boyfriend at college, at the agricultural college, who was a farmer's son, and he wanted to go back to Stroud, where he was, or the Stroud area where his dad was, who was a cattle farming, and so you know nothing was happening for me, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll go, and we rented this little cottage on Chalford Hill, which is just outside of Stroud, and that's where my art story begins, actually.
Right.
Funnily.
So what happened?
So I had a little Fiat 500, which you may not think is significant, but
Oh.
I also didn't have very much money. So I'd gone for this job as a person who was going to paint gnomes in a factory, like a gnome painting factory.
There must be a joke there somewhere. I just can't think of what it would be for the moment.
I'm sure you'll come out with it.
I have actually got several, but I'm not going to disclose them. Carry on.
So I went along for the interview in my little car. I probably spent my last £2 on petrol. The person wasn't there to receive me at the interview. And this had happened to me on a couple of other previous jobs. So I was just feeling like, you know, what these people are. I'm trying to get a job. You know, the government's trying to get me to get a job. You know, just doing anything. And it just wasn't happening. And at the bottom of the hill was a big kind of, it was sort of like a hangar, or where, you know, like a hangar anyway. And it had, outside, there were all these kind of young people painting and making things. And I just stopped there because I was driving past to get home anyway. I stopped there and I just said, "What are you doing?" I was quite upset actually, because I think I was in tears. So they were going, "Oh, we're just painting and doing." Actually, we're making a set for an advert. And so this advert turned out to be the Independent on Sunday. And they did a series of very surreal ads. It was actually a cinema advert called Sunday's Dead Are You? And it was all about people who were, you know, are you just washing your car on Sunday or doing the ironing? Or are you reading our paper? Yeah. Anyway, these sets were just, in my mind, I was just like, oh my God, this is a whole other world that I've not even, you know, I've entered this thing that's created in this hangar. I know I'm in a hangar, but I'm in this other world as well. So, and I just said, I started talking to the people outside who were just like, oh yeah, we're just working for, I don't know, there was a production company that rented the building. So we were chatting a bit, and then I went in and they said, oh, go and see the art director. And, you know, they might even have a job for you, you never know. Because I think I'd explained the plight with the gnomes and the painting and how that hadn't happened. And he said, can you paint? And I just went, yes. So I didn't really, you know. And he goes, are you free tonight? And I said, yes. So I got this job doing nights, basically building the set and painting all the crazy things. But I remember him coming around to me and going, you said you could paint and that's running. You know, this isn't what we, you know, you've got to paint better than this. So he was sort of pushing me to do a better job. I think I started off painting, and by the end I was doing I wasn't on costumes, but I was definitely building the set, and it was quite good. It was good fun.
This is brilliant, because obviously I know that you do a lot of building, fixing things, so I can get now where this comes in. I also like the idea that you had to go to the magical gnome world in order to.
The funny thing is, Vic, yesterday I realised that one of the first sets that was shot that we were working on was a gnome who was an actual dwarf actor dressed as a gnome in this crazy, fey outfit, mowing the lawn. And I thought that's very odd.
Yeah.
Now looking back. But
Yeah.
so when I'm saying things are going full circle, like.
Yeah, that's the type of thing I mean. You sort of go, well, that's really crazy stuff. I mean, this is quite common, not the gnomes, I must say. The gnomes are not so common in the but these strange, peculiar, well, I don't want to say coincidences and stuff like that, because it's not, but those strange sort of meetings and, if I hadn't have done that, then this wouldn't have happened type of idea.
It was very much.
Very, very common when you talk to people, to the point that I haven't really met anybody who's gone, well, I did this and I went there and I did that and I got this job and this, and it's like, yeah, it's always, I bumped into this guy that I knew in Hastings, but this was in the middle of London. I hadn't seen him for ages, and I'd just come back from Scandinavia, had no work. And then I literally bumped into this guy and he went, oh, it's really strange. I was only thinking about you yesterday because so-and-so needs a guitarist for a band. Just happens to be then going on tour around Europe type of thing. And you go like, that's weird. So they're quite common events. That's just one, literally. But there are loads of them like that. So I think that your known one is ranks up with those, definitely.
But the thing, going back to the car now, so I had the little white Fiat 500 and I lived literally, 700 meters up the hill or something. So when the production had finished, so I'd finished working on that production and then I was out of work again. And I was thinking, I must try and do something else like that. Anyway, I came out to my car one day and there was a note on the car. It wasn't that long after we had finished. So the production company that had rented or subletted the building for this advert, called Barn Door Productions.
All right.
And one of the guys that worked there just come up the road, left a note on the car going, oh, we need I can't remember, there was some government scheme at the time. Anyway, we need a person. It was sort of like an apprenticeship, but it wasn't really. It was just, we need a person. So I went down there and I got this job with them then in the same building. And we were making a TV puppet show with these puppets that were, they were hand animated. But so first of all, when I was in there, we were on building the set. So we built this huge rostrum that you could stand under for puppeteering purposes. We boarded it all out, built the set on top of it, made loads of props. It was all very hands-on and very fun work. And then I was particularly good at sewing. I'm just self-taught in all of these things, really. And my parents have sort of, realized I could do things and they got me tools, when I was younger, and I converted camper vans and stuff like that. But so I had sort of self-built skills, if you like, and I became the head of wardrobe down there. So I was making all these, like a deer stalker for a puppet that big and things like that. And then, of course, we did all the puppeteering. That was wildly entertaining.
That's amazing. It's good. So
I think
you let slip that there were a couple of other things that you hadn't said, that you were good at sewing.
This is like an interrogation, Rick.
Yeah, no, I'm interested because it's these little threads. I mean, this is quite common. People don't realise that there's something really important that they sort of, when they tell their story. But anyway, So that's brilliant. So you're suddenly head of wardrobe.
Yeah, it
Cool.
was a good fun place. I remember one time, I hadn't realised actually, but when we were doing the filming, we'd created this little underwater scene with this talking clam, and the guy whose production company it was, Mr. Pullen, he was a diver, and he left his I don't know, left some diving gear lying around, and I put the wetsuit on and got the diving knife and went behind the, when they were filming, highly inappropriate. I went behind the set so you could see through, and I was walking along with this knife in the wetsuit, and everybody was just like, there was a lot of comedic activity.
Yeah,
And he's like, Sonia, we're so up against it. And then he just kind of fell around laughing. And then, it was, there was a lot of going to the pub at lunchtime and going to the pub after work. And,
Yeah, sounds good. So how long was that for then? Did you do that?
It was quite a long time. It must have been a good year and a half, I'm thinking. In the meantime, my, farmer's son relationship had split up. I'd moved house, and then I started to think about what I was, what's my next move? Because I was on a very low income. And I remember thinking one Friday night, I thought, I haven't even got the money this week to go to the pub. And that was where the action was really for the work,
Yeah, of course it is, yeah.
Accumulation of the work week.
Yeah.
So I was
coming up for new things, yeah.
I think I was looking in some journal magazines, and I found a model maker who lived in Faversham who was advertising for people. So I just sent a CV in, and he offered me a week's work. He's called Darius Wilson, and I still work for him now, actually. So this is a good 20 years later.
Wow.
And I started doing that. I think the work rolled on for another few weeks. There were some people, other model makers working there who were working in London, and they sort of gave me a few contacts. Oh, why don't you try these people? So then I started sort of going up to London working. It was all, the work in Faversham was all sort of special effects for TV adverts at the time, museum work, exhibition work. Now it's mainly exhibitions and museum, because special effects has all gone kind of digital.
Yeah.
But we'll go to, he does a lot of work for English heritage, so we've had little trips to Isle of Wight to refurbish models, Dover Castle, that kind of thing.
Wow.
Darwin's house in.
See, this is the sort of thing that it's like a world that you would never knew existed artistically.
When I was at school, I didn't know that you could do such jobs.
Yeah.
And even when I did the advert, I was thinking, gosh, this is amazing. There must be more of this work, but I don't know how to find it. I did actually roll on with the guy who did after. Actually, maybe it was at the same time. I did more work with the guy who was the art director on the independent advert. I remember going to a flat in London and completely mosaicing the whole thing. And also swimming pools, we did big mosaics on. So there was, quite a bit of work through him after that.
That's amazing. So did your work sort of stay in that sort of vein then for a while? Or would you say that still is the sort of main vein of what you do?
Well, I was working for Darius in Faversham, and that it would be, I sort of quickly realized freelancing, you might work for 3 companies and sort of rotate them. And, as one runs out of work, another one's got jobs, and then, there's very little time off really. when I was working for Darius and started going up to London, I did get this quite big gig with a party company. So I ended up doing things like McCann Erickson, the advertising agency, had a big underground car park, and they go, "Can you come for a meeting? We want to do Studio 54 for our Christmas party," that
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So these jobs were great for me, and I had this wonderful Icelandic helper who was completely, who's completely mad. But we just came up with these. I'd say, "I've got this idea. We need to do this," and he'd go, "Oh, I know how to do that," and we'll. So we kind of sort of worked it out together, and we did these. We did quite a few different crazy party sets, like Las Vegas. All these huge props.
How do you do it? Obviously, it's not just two of you doing it, surely.
Well, we had a sort of timeline, so we could build up to do.
Wow.
It wasn't really that. You'd have a few key props.
Yeah.
You'd have background decoration, and quite often there's masses of one thing. So we're just knocking out flats and putting different designs on them, or doing some lighting thing.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of that. It's all very sort of, I don't know what you call it. I like to think of it as kind of fast and dirty work, that freelancing lifestyle.
Right.
You end up eating a lot of kebabs and drinking a lot of beer and kind of.
It's quite interesting. This is so we've got gnomes, beer, and kebabs so far as the important touchstones.
So also, when I was doing that, I worked for other model makers, and I did other jobs. I kind of kicked myself because when I was back in Stroud looking for more work, I got offered a wardrobe position at the English Royal Opera.
Right.
It was a sort of work experience, but it would have gone on, I think, to be a job. And that's one of the opportunities I can look back. And the other thing I slightly regret, although I don't think I was up to dealing with the character I'd have to work with, was don't quite know what my job would have been, but it was the assistant to the leader of the Lion King.
Right.
And I was in the interview, and I just saw his aura kind of go, these like cogs turning around his head, and I just thought, oh my God, this is going to be such a huge demand. I was young. I didn't really, I think I sort of said in my mind, I think I was like, I want to be the hands-on person making the stuff, not the organizational person for that. So there were two things I didn't do, which the opera one I probably almost certainly should have done, but you say should have done, but could have done.
It's just a different thing, isn't it?
But I did an awful lot of that, model making, props, costume stuff in London, and then back in Faversham here and there. And then I think that
See, I'm quite interested in the way that sort of developed out of nothing. Because it did, didn't it? And in a way,
is it called winging it, Vic?
Sorry?
Winging it, it's called.
Yeah, but I think
found out that all adults do it actually now, but at the time I didn't know that.
No, exactly, because you're led to believe that nobody does that sort of thing. But in actual fact, everybody does it, really. Anybody that actually succeeds at things does it.
Talking of winging it, I remembered that there's a chap I worked for yesterday called Matt Button. So I was doing some scenic painting on a film set, and he had some work locally. So I went on a part of this freelancing sort of cycle of things. I went on this course. It was for art directors. So you'd learn about surveying a site for a film, building a model. Anyway, I sat next to this guy called Matt, and it was about a 5-day course, so we kind of got to know each other a bit. And at the end, he said, "I'm extending the hand of friendship now. You know, this will never come back." And it was another one of those moments, because I'd said to him throughout the course, you know, I'm doing all this like party sets, model making, costumes, props. I said, I'm more interested at the moment in getting into construction. So I want to be a set builder, you know, on the carpentry side.
Right.
And he said, oh, I'll see if I can get you a job. Anyway, it sort of got left like that. In between doing some freelancing, I was riding rickshaws in the city of London, you know, taking passengers.
Okay, hang on a minute. Where did that come from?
It was just it was a sort of filler job. If there weren't any
Okay.
freelance positions, I'd just go and do a couple of days on the rickshaw.
Yeah, okay. So what gave you the idea to do rickshaw?
I think one of my jobs was working at a costume shop in Spitalfields,
Oh,
and
okay.
the rickshaw riders were all around. So I stopped the costume job, and I just did, I don't know, it didn't last very long. I quite enjoyed it because it got you really, really fit.
Yes, it would do, I'm sure.
And you know, especially if you had a couple of big people on the back of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, Matt, I remember doing this once. He phoned up and he said, "I've got you a job at Ralph Lauren," and I was like, "What?"
Wow.
He said, "I've got you a job at Ralph Lauren. You need to turn up, you know, tomorrow at whatever time." So I turned up, and this is over in West London. So I remember it all being near the Hoover building. And this big South African guy was sort of looking down on me going, "Oh, hi, Sonia, you're a carpenter." And I just said, "Yes." And then he said, "Oh, great. When the wood arrives, you can make this." And he handed me these drawings. And I was looking at this kind of, you know, these plans of what I found out to be a louver door. And every time the buzzer went, I just went like, "Oh my God, that's the wood." Anyway, the wood turned up. I did manage to make the louver door, which was a feat of I was in this workshop with all these other kind of, I don't know, these 25-year-old lads. It was a period of my life that was such good fun.
So we'll leave it there till next time. The second episode of this will be out probably in a few days' time. So until then, see you.